Bones. That's me. I hope everybody is ready for the last bit, I think, of this particular theme. Hey there, Doc. Adam. Loandle. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So I hope you have been following along and have some idea of what we are talking about. Thank you, TotiLover69. I appreciate the likes and for following. So, a little bit of housekeeping to begin, and then we'll explain where we stand on things, and we will take it from there. So, on this channel we have just one rule: do not be rude. If you are rude, we give you the boot, and we ban you. If you are very rude, we will report as well, because there have been far too many fairly awful trolls, which is quite nasty. Thank you again for the likes. That said, it is not to say that we do not appreciate very, very greatly if you comment, and you can agree or disagree as long as you are polite about it. It's entirely up to you how you stand on a topic, and I enjoy the differences. So comment very, very greatly, help support the algorithm, which we have to do. Like, share, subscribe, send lots of gifts, do all of the good things that make this a workable channel. That said, we've been talking about really strange experiments with a particular sort of aim towards human experiments, and we got onto the topic because of Fallout, the game. The discussion we were having started with the real science behind Star Trek, actually, and that it was actually very, very good science. Excuse me, I'm just moving in. It was a very good discussion. And then one of the guys on the live asked, well, what about Fallout? Could you really have all of that sort of monsters and things coming after a nuclear war? And because we had been talking survival and so on for a civilian, we decided that, well, let's do a bit of research and find out the truth thereon. And that led into the realization that, by and large, while it is, of course, well, okay, I will explain exactly what happens in terms of your comment. So, Fallout itself is a really good game. It is, but it is not accurate, actually. You will find that radiation doesn't do the things that it does in Fallout. Generally, all it does is unalive you in a particularly nasty way, if it's strong enough, and if it isn't, it just makes you very sick. It seems that if there was ever some kind of mutations at all, and actually the one thing that Fallout did get right with the FEV serum is that it would actually be done by people. Ordinary evolution happens only over a very, very long time, but forced evolution might be possible by human interference. Now, first of all, just so you know, Chernobyl is just the power plant. The village, if you ever want to go and check it out, is called Pripyat, and still you cannot go and live there. You can visit briefly with extreme care, I believe, but you can't live there. So all of the people that were there were taken out, and in fact the effects on those workers that went in to deal with the meltdown, apparently a great number of them, in fact, seriously have had bad effects on them, which was not good at all. So it seems that no, they do. they might keep you in isolation, but they certainly don't leave you in there. They would not be allowed, on the one side. And on the other side, actually, they've done a lot of research on those that were affected, for that exact reason, to figure out how do you deal with it and all the rest of it. And most people managed to evacuate Pripyat before the radiation would have spread to them. Remember, it was not an explosion, it was a meltdown. So it moved slower, which was to their huge luck in that regard. There were people that went in afterwards, mostly in, hey Jay, mostly in biohazard suits and radiation suits and what have you. But some people still did get quite seriously affected and were put in hospitals where they were checked out. I actually went and checked up on the whole thing myself because I was quite curious, and there's some amazing stuff that came out of the aftermath at Pripyat, and a few conspiracy theories. I have to mention those. After all, this is Strange Bones. I mean, come on. But by and large, none of it was Fallout-esque, shall we say. It was very much just not good, and people then died or became very sick. So there has been some quite serious issues in that regard from the fallout. But it seems that while people don't do well with radiation, nature manages pretty well. And it's really taken back over the entire area. And the animals are doing great with only minor effects, by and large. And the plants are having a ball. So it seems nature can handle a lot more than we think, but people less so. So there's that. But then, of course, we have the question of, all right, if that's the case and it would be a human thing, what have humans done? I shall definitely look that up because I do like those kind of games. I will give it a bash if I can get it. We shall see what I can do. I believe it's on Steam. So, yeah, sounds good to me. I'm a fan of video games. I'm still playing Skyrim, I'm not even going to lie. So, yeah. So we started talking about quite a lot of cases where people in the health and safety and medical industries actually did experiments, and some of them were pretty awful, and many of them were in fact not legal even slightly. We know that, for example, yay, Mickey's here. The Tuskegee syphilis study was utterly illegal in the US. Hey Mickey, how you doing?
Okay, thanks. You?
Good, good, good. Are you suitably warm and do you have your coffee?
Yeah, it's not too cold here. So.
Good stuff. It's got a bit chillos here, but not too bad. A couple of days ago it was terrifyingly cold, but we seem to be okay today. But I'm just giving a little bit of a background of what we've covered to the new people, so bear with me a little bit.
Sure.
Okay, so the Tuskegee syphilis, let's rewind. The Tuskegee syphilis study was a study conducted in the US where they deliberately, despite having the means to, did not give medicines or treatment to people that they had infected with syphilis to see how it progressed. They did not tell the infected people that they had done this, but as we discovered in the last live. Afterwards, they did give an apology, which seems
Yeah,
like,
it's kind of weird.
yeah, like how sick you are now and all the problems you're having. Well, you see, it was actually us, and we're terribly sorry. But, it sucks to be you. But there you go. Now, most people have at least heard broadly of the Nazi medical experiments. And we actually came to the point where, given the other ones, while we certainly don't in any manner or form condone or support, at least they did it on their enemies. Most of the other ones were done on their own people in other countries, which is pretty awful. The monster study, for example, was done in a special home for disabled children on children. The Statesville Penitentiary, at least they did agree to being a part of, as with the Milgram shock experiments, which was pretty awful. The CIA mind control experiments was utterly illegal. They did not inform their subjects at all and gave them LSD and all kinds of stuff. Unit 731 in Japan, again, at least it was on their enemies, probably illegal. And when we get to the end, I will give you the current legal status of such things, and there are now laws in place that stop you from ever doing that. And then, of course, you had a number of others that they just happily went ahead and did on people, including full-on surgeries on women with no anesthetic at all, because they said, well, we're only doing it on black people and they don't feel pain, which was pretty harsh. I mean, come on. But there you go. The things people do. And we are carrying on from there with a few more of suitably terrifying things that governments have not only condoned but supported. So in 1920, John Watson, along with graduate student Rosalie Rayner, conducted their emotional conditioning experiment on a 9-month-old baby who they nicknamed Albert B. at Johns Hopkins University, in an effort to prove their theory that we are all born as blank slates that can be shaped. The child's mother, a wet nurse who worked at the hospital, was paid $1 whole for allowing her son to be experimented upon.
Yes.
Good evening, Spooky. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of how illegal can we go, there have been times in history, I'm just saying. That's pretty awful. Thanks for those likes. Hey, Spooky, are you in good form?
How's it going?
Do you have your coffee and all? Are you ready for more?
Yeah, I've got my coffee, also ready to go.
Good stuff. Okay, so we've just started right this second. So John Watson in 1920, along with a graduate student, conducted the emotional conditioning experiment on a 9-month-old baby they called Albert B. They paid the mother, who was the wet nurse as well there, $1 to do the experiments. So it went like this. First, they introduced the baby to a small furry white rat, of which he initially had no fear, and apparently didn't really show any interest in, given that he was 9 months. They reintroduced him to the rat while loud sounds were made over and over. Albert, which was not his real name, was exposed to the rat and startling noises until he became terrified any time he saw this small furry rat or any small furry animal. So dogs, monkeys, rats and everything, and regardless of noise. Now, who exactly Albert was remained unknown until 2010, when his identity was revealed to be Douglas Merritt. Merritt, turns out, wasn't a healthy subject. He showed signs of behavioral and neurological impairment, never learnt to talk or walk, and only lived to age 6, dying from hydrocephalus, which is water on the brain. He suffered from a bacterial meningitis that he may have acquired accidentally during treatment for his hydrocephaly. Some theorize that it may have been possibly intentionally introduced as part of another experiment. He was never deconditioned, and nobody knows what would have happened because he died at the age of 6. I mean, how serious a monster must you be to do that? I don't know which is...
Probably very evil.
Well, I don't know which is worse, the people that did the experiments or his mother that let him do it for the payment of $1. Now, we know about the monster study, which was all about trying to introduce stuttering to see if it could be introduced, and how badly that went. But don't worry, they did it on orphaned children. I mean, come on, guys. It just gets worse and worse the longer you go on. So, yeah. Now, they also did a very interesting thing, again at Statesville Penitentiary, which we know in the past they've done other experiments at, but this was a malaria study. And they gave what I suppose they thought were good reasons for it, which I'm a little bit dubious on. So between 60 and 65% of American soldiers in the South Pacific in World War II suffered from a malarial infection at some point during their service. Of course, understood. If you don't know, we're talking about a jungle area which most people are not immune to or capable of managing very well. It's a very harsh environment, far worse than deserts and things, actually. So they decided that the infection was more deadly than the enemy. So finding an effective treatment was high priority. Fair enough. Safe anti-malarial drugs were seen as essential to winning the war. Fair. At the beginning... Oh, we got a bit of feedback there. Blasted my own ears. At the beginning in 1944 and spanning over the course of 2 years, more than 400 prisoners in Statesville Penitentiary were subjects of an experiment finding an effective drug against malaria. Prisoners taking part in the experiment were infected and then treated with experimental anti-malarial treatments. There wasn't a hidden agenda, and its unethical methodology didn't bother anyone who wanted to win the war, of course. So they were like, it's cool, nobody cares, they're prisoners anyway. And
It really depends on what they did.
they gave them malaria.
No, I'm talking about what the president did. Somebody that
Well,
maybe, maybe you don't know, make them sick and leave.
apparently they were volunteers, and they got slightly shorter prison sentences for their participation.
Yeah, no, then it's fine. They go consider.
I know that Spooky likes to point out that if the means to the end, if the end is suitable enough, the means is fine. Maybe not. Now, the next interesting thing is one which was done in South Africa. and it was called the Aversion Project. Now, we do know that if you lived during the apartheid era in South Africa, there was state-regulated segregation, but it also included controls of sexuality. There were quite strict anti-homosexual laws, and if you were gay, you were considered a deviant. And it was seen as a disease that should and could be treated. So even after it ceased to be considered a mental illness, and aversion therapy was proved not to cure it, psychiatrists and army medical professionals in the SADF still believed in those theories and treatments and still used it. Aversion therapy techniques were initially used on prisoners and on South Africans who were forced to join the military under conscription at the time, which included me. I don't know, Spooky, did you go to the army?
No, I'm 35 years old.
So you avoided it all. And I know Mickey would have avoided it, but yes, I had to go. And they were very strict.
I was 4 years old when I came.
So there you go. Now, in Ward 22 at 1 Mil, in Voortrekkerhoogte, in Pretoria, between 60... Eh? I cannot hear you this evening. Spooky.
Yeah.
There we go. Now I hear.
My father went to jail because of his religion with a witness.
Okay.
So he didn't go to the army. Can you hear me?
So you say they had to go to reservists, not the army?
No, he went to jail. Because he didn't go to the army.
Okay. For me, I went to the border. That's how it was.
Yeah.
So
No, but
yeah.
when you go to jail, it was a good thing for you because you went and worked and you learned new skill.
Well, I think it certainly made a man of you. If you weren't part of the groups that were considered bad or deviant or anything like that, you were okay. If you were, it did not go well. So you absolutely could not be gay in the army.
Okay. When I was off the gay topic, I went back to you going to the army and that you had to go and serve the army for at least 2 years.
Well, they were. This was the point of these experiments because they wanted to be able to cure you so you could go and serve.
I'll be back.
Okay. So yeah, one Mil was famous. Ward 22 of 1 Mil in Voortrekkerhoogte between 69 and 87 did a number of things to attempt to cure people of deviation. So any kind of homosexuality, men or women, were drugged and subjected to electroconvulsive behavior therapy while shown aversion stimuli. So what that means in ordinary English is if you were a gay man, I would show you a naked man and then shock you with something that was a level that was really painful, so that your brain started to learn that it was bad. Of course, it doesn't work. So they had to then move on to hormone therapy, which in some cases even included chemical castration. And they reckon that an estimated 900 men and women underwent forced gender reassignment surgery when subsequent efforts to reorient them failed, most of them without consent, and some left unfinished. So you whip it off, but don't put anything else on. Now, as we know, none of these treatments actually do work at all. So yeah, it was one of those awful situations where people were basically just tortured for.
Yeah.
It did no good, and we kind of knew it never would. It just was like that. So pretty awful for our country to go ahead and do it. But I've heard that a lot worse was done by a lot worse people. So, and in other countries. So it seems that this is a commonality in governments, that they'll go ahead and do stuff. Like the okay, so in 1925, the Geneva Protocol banned using biological warfare, okay, which sounds great, doesn't it? But Japan rejected the ban. If germ warfare was effective enough to be banned, it must work. So they then started Unit 731, a secret unit in a secret facility, publicly known as the Epidemic Prevention and Water Supply Unit. And it was in Manchuria, which in the mid-1930s Japan controlled, and they began experimenting with pathogenic and chemical warfare testing on human subjects. So military physicians and officers intentionally exposed victims to infectious diseases, including anthrax, cholera, the bubonic plague, syphilis, typhus, and a whole lot of others, to see how they affected the body and how they could be used against their enemies in World War II. Now, this is something I find incredibly ironic. After World War II, ask anybody almost anywhere, and Hitler was the Antichrist, Germany was evil, the Nazis were awful, etc., etc., etc. And yes, they did do a lot of dubious things, but the worst thing it seems that they did was that they lost, because all the other countries were doing exactly the same thing. And at least the Germans did it on their enemies. Many of these experiments were done by governments on their own people. So yeah, it's kind of hypocritical in quite a harsh way, and some of them actually carried on a lot long after World War II into the Cold War and all of that as well. So governments, you can't trust them. Now, we know also that in addition to working with pathogens, the Unit 731 did other experiments on people, including, and not limited to, dissections and vivisections while they were alive and without anesthesia, because they felt that if you gave an anesthetic to the subject, it would mess up your results. So they just went ahead and strapped you down. It seems that most of the subjects were Chinese civilians or prisoners of war, but also included Russian and Americans in that, and anybody who wasn't Japanese was a potential subject. Now they reckon about Non-Q wants to join. Do we know Non-Q? We do not know Non-Q. Welcome, but sorry, only known people do get to join the live, I'm afraid. I do apologize.
First comment, leave a comment so they can say they want to join. Then I can check their profile and let you know, okay, no, they're legit. They're not.
Well, that one had 20 followers.
Okay.
So
No, you could have created that account today.
absolutely. I mean, I've kept people off for less than 500 in some cases. So, yeah, guys, there's been so many bad trolls that you need to be on and known for a while and have commented and what have you for us to allow you on. It's not any offense to any of you, it's just for the mental safety of all of us here. I'm a sensitive soul. Don't smile, Mickey.
So sensitive.
So, after World War II, the US granted immunity to those who were involved in the crimes committed at 731 as part of an information exchange agreement. And until the 1980s, the Japanese government didn't even admit any of it happened, by which you may translate that to mean the government, or the US government, were like, give us your results and we won't, prosecute you, because we want to know too. So it's like, really? But there you go, that's governments for you. The next interesting one are the human vivisections of Herophilus. Now, it's not a new thing. Ancient physician Herophilus, who is the person considered to be the father of anatomy, making significant discoveries during his practice, and learn all about the internal workings of the human body. What puts him on the list is that he did all of his explorations on living people. Now, he practiced medicine in Alexandria in Egypt during the reign of the first two Ptolemaic pharaohs, and was allowed, at least for about 30 to 40 years, to dissect human bodies, which he did, not only dissecting them, but doing it publicly, along with contemporary Greek physician and anatomist Erasistratus, under Ptolemy I and Ptolemy II. Criminals could be sentenced to dissection and vivisection as punishment. And it said the father of anatomy not only dissected the dead, but did it all on the living too, up to as many as 600 living prisoners. What a nice man he was. Great things for modern medicine, apparently, but really. Now, Herophilus made great strides in the study of human anatomy, especially the brain, the eyes, the liver, the circulatory system, the nervous system, the reproductive system, during a time in history when dissecting human cadavers was considered an act of desecration of the body. There were no autopsies ever conducted, and while mummification was important, that was different. And like today, performing vivisection on living bodies was considered to be butchery. But he did it anyway, and apparently learned great things because of it. Yeah, a dodgy bunch by all accounts. Now, to go back to what we have briefly looked at, there were issues in terms of a lot of things in World War II on all sides. And that basically resulted in the Nuremberg Code, the Declaration of Helsinki, and all of those things which now ban all of that hardcore. We know that we had interesting Nazi experiments, the hypothermia, high altitude surgical and pharmaceutical tests. They also did sterilization experiments to see which was the best way to do mass sterilization. And of course you had that wonderful fellow that most people don't realize was the main problem child. And 50 cents to anyone who can guess where he worked. His name was Josef Mengele.
Oh, you worked at the thingy, what? Concentration camps.
He did. Which one? You're 25 cents and going fast.
Auschwitz.
There we go. Mickey is well versed in history. Yes, he worked primarily in Auschwitz. And one of his special tests was entirely on twins. If I poke one through the arm with a metal spike, does the other one feel it? Things like that, quite literally. And then, of course, yeah?
Didn't he try and make a conjoined twin as well?
He did. That was another one of his things. But he was responsible for most of what went on experimentally at Auschwitz. He liked people with physical abnormalities. And then what he would do is he would do all of the experiments, then give them a lethal injection so he could do a full-on autopsy to see what the experiments had done inside. He was apparently slightly psychotic. So, yeah, interesting fellow. We do know as well, by the way, that one of the things done by Japan was special weapons testing, by which what we mean is I need to know how to give proper medical treatment to wounded soldiers. Now, what that means is I will take a subject, give them the wound, and then see how treatable it is. So basically, I will take the subject, shoot them, stab them, do all the good things, and then see, oh, does this work? What happens if I cut off both his legs? And so on and so forth. So it got pretty dark. Yeah.
Rub a bit of bacteria in there, same time. And
all of that, yes, absolutely. So it got pretty dark. We've already spoken about MK Ultra, where the CIA gave LSD and stuff to people. The Tuskegee syphilis study and the Guatemala syphilis study. Now, the next interesting one happened in Sweden. The Vipholm experiments between 45 and 55. So let's see what we can find out about that one. Now, where did it go? Because I want to go into that one a little bit. It was an interesting one. And I may have lost it. So we'll get to it to cover. But basically, intellectually disabled people were fed massive amounts of sweets to see if there was a link between sugar and cavities. As it turns out, there is.
yeah.
Surprise, surprise. Then there was the J. Marion Sims surgical experiments in the 1840s. The physician often called the father of gynecology was the one that then used enslaved African women for surgical, as in cutting in experiments, without anesthesia or consent. So it got pretty dark there as well. Now, what sort of things were really done in the US? Because as we know, everybody blames certain people for things, but we've discovered that actually, at best, they were second in line when it came to doing a lot of them. The concentration camps were first used most effectively by the British. We know that a lot of human experimentation started in other countries. So what sort of things were done? Well, now considered unethical, performed without the consent or knowledge of the test subjects. These have happened many times. There were the famous tests on humans exposing them to chemical and biological weapons. The Tuskegee syphilis situation was one of them. Human radiation experiments, injections of toxic and radioactive chemicals, surgical experiments, interrogation and torture experiments, tests involving mind-altering substances, and a lot of others as well. Remember, these are all government sanctioned. Most of these tests were performed on children, the sick, mentally disabled individuals, and were touted as being proper medical treatment. Don't worry, we know what we're doing. Many of the subjects were poor, which is a terrible thing to be. Racial minorities, also a terrible thing to be, or prisoners. Now, many of these experiments violated US law even at the time they were done, and were directly sponsored by government agencies or rogue elements thereof, including the Centers for Disease Control, the United States military, and the CIA. In other cases, they were sponsored by private corporations that were involved in military activity. So not direct, but nevertheless, shall we say, tacitly approved. The human research programs were highly secretive and performed without the knowledge or authorization of General Congress. And in many cases, information about them was not released until many, many years later, after the studies were performed. Now, let's have a look at some of what was done. And we will start with, well, we've covered the J. Marion Sims gynecology experiments, which was in the US. The neonatal tetanus experiments, also same guy. Apparently, though, slave owners were willing to negotiate with Sims for access to their slaves because of their economic value increase if they could be cured of whatever may have ailed them or thought to have ailed them. The patients, one of whom was operated on 30 times, suffered from infections and all the rest of it, but was eventually cured of the fistula. So, yay, I suppose. But they were all done on people without anesthesia. And later on, he did them on other white females because now he knew they worked. Now, this is back in the day where even proper surgery on people really needing it was kind of dodgy in a great many ways. It wasn't good. So you can imagine if the real doctors thought he was a bit of a crackpot, it must have been fairly awful. In 1874, Mary Rafferty, an Irish servant woman, came to Robert Barthlow of the Good Samaritan Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio, for treatment of a lesion on her head. The lesion was diagnosed as a cancerous ulcer, and surgical treatments were attempted. He saw her condition as terminal, but felt there was a research opportunity, so he stuck electrode needles into her brain matter in order to gauge her responses. This was done with no intention of treating her at all. When she came out of the coma caused by the experiment 3 days later, she died from a massive seizure the following day. And basically, Barthlow just said that, you know, well, their reactions were extreme. How sad. Well, yeah, that's probably not a good thing. Now, in the subsequent autopsy, he noted that some brain damage had occurred due to the electrodes, but it was the cancer that killed her. Yeah, I don't know about that. They were formally condemned by fellow physicians, not because of what he had done, and basically, although she gave cheerful assent to the procedure, she was feeble-minded and therefore it didn't count. Now, we also know that in 1896, another time when surgeries were not the best in the world, Arthur Wentworth performed spinal taps on 29 young children without the knowledge or consent of their parents at the Children's Hospital in Boston, in Massachusetts, to discover whether or not doing it would be bad. I mean, okay. In 1913 to 1951, Leo Stanley, the chief surgeon at San Quentin Prison, performed a wide variety of experiments on hundreds of prisoners, many of them involving testicular implants, where Stanley would take the testicles out of executed prisoners and implant them into living ones. In other experiments, he attempted to implant the testicles of rams, goats, and boars into living prisoners. He also performed varied eugenics experiments and forced sterilizations on the prisoners. He believed that his experiments could rejuvenate old men, control crime, which he believed had biological causes, and prevent the unfit from reproducing. That sounds nice, doesn't it? In 1955 to 1960 at Sonoma State Hospital in Northern California, it was a permanent drop-off location for mentally disabled children diagnosed with cerebral palsy or lesser disorders. They were subsequently used for painful experimentation without adult consent. Many were given spinal taps, for which they received no benefit, and they learned that in these 5 years, the brain of every child with cerebral palsy who had died at Sonoma State was removed and studied without parental consent. So there's your surgeries. Let's go on to what the scientists got up to. So in the 1880s, a Californian physician working in a hospital for lepers in Hawaii injected 6 girls under the age of 12 with syphilis to see if it affected their leprosy. In 1895, pediatrician, I mean, you know this is going bad the moment that you say pediatrician, intentionally infected 2 mentally disabled boys, one 4-year-old and one 16-year-old, with gonorrhea as part of a medical experiment. It was found that more than 40 reports of experimental infections with gonorrhea was done by a number of doctors just to see what it did and how you might, fix it. U.S. Army doctors in the Philippines injected prisoners with the bubonic plague and beriberi in 29 prisoners, resulting in the deaths of at least 4 test subjects. 24 Filipinos in 1906 were infected by Professor Richard P. Strong of Harvard, and live cholera. They wanted to see if it had any effect. It did. They died. So, great, I suppose. 20th century. 1908, 3 researchers in Philadelphia infected dozens of children with tuberculosis at, and this is the best part, the St. Vincent Orphanage in Philadelphia. I mean, St. Vincent, the patron saint of children. How low can you go? It caused permanent blindness, painful lesions, inflammation of the eyes, and they were referred to in the studies as material used. Yeah, the children.
Wow.
It gets worse. Don't worry. We're going to jump forward in time, however, to see how recent things have gone. So like the human radiation experiments, which were done by the US federal government agencies and the military, obviously happened round about the time of the atomic bombs, naturally. And basically, they would insert radium rods into the noses of school children in US and Canada to measure the health effects of radioactive fallout from nuclear bomb tests. They injected pregnant women and babies with radioactive chemicals, and a lot worse as well. Some of it I'm not even going to go into. My God. So this is around late 40s, early 50s. There was Operation Green Rum, where the US Atomic Energy Commission released iodine-131 and xenon-133 into the atmosphere in a place in Washington and contaminated 500,000 acres where there were 3 small towns, by the way. In 1953, they went back and did studies in the University of Iowa on the effects of radioactive iodine on pregnant women and on newborns. Apparently that too did not go well. It got worse. All the same theme, but yes, it got worse. There were several uranium and plutonium experiments, same vein, and other radioactive materials, which basically proved what they did think, that it was bad for you. So if you're surprised at that result, there you go. So whenever people point, as it were, at the Nazis, just remember, what's that old kid thing? When I point at you, there are 3 fingers pointing back at me. It's never been more true. We blame Hitler for so much that he was pretty much a runner-up at. I mean, he barely killed anyone compared to a lot of genocidal maniacs. So, yeah, I'm just throwing it out there. And the experiments in psychology and with drugs and all the rest of it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And they were all done in the US. Even in 1975, they were still talking about how should we put in rules about what you may or may not do, because, you know, maybe it's bad. I mean, guys, I think it was bad. Moving along, we have even more possible things, but we're going to skip over all of the US ones because they were all federally funded. They were all used for all kinds of things. And yet in every research thing I did, the first one is brought up with the Nazis. And almost none of the other ones are anything more than a footnote. We know that in the USSR all sorts was done, and just so we are fully inclusive, in the 1920s and 1930s, Aboriginal Australians were subjected to medical experiments to see how they experienced pain. Experiments were motivated by what they called scientific racism, to see if they were different. And basically, they used serious pain-inducing methods to see how they reacted, and was it different to anyone else. In 2002, the Vice-Chancellor of the university described the experiments as degrading and barbaric, and issued a formal apology to the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islander groups. I'm sure they felt much better for being apologized to. But wait, there's more. Canada, the nicest country in the world. Apparently not, because they did trials on 600 native children from the reserves of the tuberculosis vaccine. The control and treatment groups, nearly a fifth of them actually died from varying things, not just from the tuberculosis, but from diseases of poverty and gastroenteritis and pneumonia, because the living conditions that they were kept in while being tested on were lethal. They weren't just bad, they were lethal. So yeah, I think that what we need to get to is that, oh, here we go, our Viper Home experiments. A series of human experiments where patients at the Viper Home Hospital for the intellectually disabled in Lund were fed large amounts of sweets to provoke calories. The experiments were sponsored by the sugar industry and the dental community in an effort to determine whether carbohydrates affected their formation of cavities. They provided extensive knowledge about dental health and resulted in enough empirical data to link the intake of sugar to dental cavities. But they may have violated the principles of medical ethics because they never had consent. Throwing it out there. The Soviet Union, of course, we know, all kind of interesting experiments, especially during the war. They manufactured and tested poisons in the poison laboratory for the Secret Service, which was known as the Special Office, Laboratory 1, Laboratory 12, and the Central Investigation Institute for Special Technology and Camera. The laboratory was reported reactivated by the government in the 1990s, just throwing it out there. Gregory Myranovsky, head of the Laboratory 1, tested lethal poisons on prisoners from the gulags, including mustard gas, ricin, digitoxin, curare, cyanide, and many others. The objective was to identify a tasteless, odorless chemical that could not be detected post-mortem. Candidate poisons were administered to the victims along with a meal or drink disguised as medication. Myranovsky intentionally brought individuals of various physical conditions and ages in the laboratory to see how the poison worked. Pavel Sudoplatov and Nahum Aitingon approved specialized equipment, poisons, if it had been tested on humans, as revealed in the testimony of varying people thereafter. And they said that they were not all done with authorization of the NKVD. Following Stalin's death and Beira's subsequent arrest, Beira attested on 1953 August that I gave orders to Myronovsky to conduct the experiments on people sentenced to the highest measure of punishment. But it wasn't my idea. United Kingdom, innocent? No. They used experiments on British and Indian soldiers with mustard gas. 20,000 British servicemen were subjected to chemical warfare trials. Experiments on Indian servicemen conducted in Rawalpindi in the 30s and 40s were pretty harsh. Some of them were hospitalized as a result of their injuries, and the engineer Ronald Madison was killed in the 1950s when he was exposed to 200 milligrams of sarin in the UK because they wanted to see if it worked. Turkey, the United States, who else? And varying international drug trials as well, which were done on all sorts of people all over the world. So, yeah, all of the good guys that are anti-Nazi because of the evils they did them too. So, yeah. Now, there were a lot of really bad things that were done, and I think it would just be now a bit ghoulish to go further with what was done and on whom, because they really did get quite nasty. And there's very little good that can be said. However, has anybody ever tried to do human mutation? Well, yes. At least allegedly for good reasons. So you had disease research where they wanted to see if we can make people immune, or at least more immune to diseases, especially for things like cystic fibrosis and sickle cell anemia, which can be quite serious. Now, certain gene mutations cause them, and if we could correct those gene mutations, we would then cure them. That's the theory, which is true. A lot of evolutionary studies are done to see how long it would take for things to actually occur as mutations. But it's generally understood it will take many generations. It's not a quick thing naturally. Can you correct mutations through gene editing? So somatic gene therapy basically involves modifying genes in a patient's non-reproductive cells to treat a disease in some way. And there has been success with sickle cell anemia. The changes, however, are not heritable, which basically means that if your mother has sickle cell anemia or a propensity for it, you will too. And if I modify your mother's genes and then she gives birth to you, you still could be susceptible to get it. The mutation force does not affect you. The second form is embryo gene editing, which, as you can imagine, means that they want to edit the genes in the human embryo right at the beginning to repair disease-causing mutations. It's very controversial because of the safety issues and the idea of designer babies, which is a bit worrying. And really and truly, the problem is the only way to do it is on babies. There's no other way, which is a problem. And even if I say I fixed your sickle cell anemia, it doesn't necessarily mean that I haven't caused something else. And we just don't know what else it might do. Great, I've cured you from sickle cell anemia, but you've been born with 3 heads. We don't know how the body works enough to be able to do it. Now, this is all important. It is good, in a sense. It is a bit dodgy. We know that mutations accumulate over generations, but they do so randomly. So if your mother has a propensity to sickle cell anemia, you might not. We don't know for sure, or why you might not, which is a problem. And of course, the other side of it is, well, we're happy with you trying to cure me, but what else might you try to do? So, do humans mutate? Well, yes, constantly. It's a normal ongoing process, but it's not like in science fiction where suddenly you grow an extra arm or whatever. It's very, very slow and very, very small, and it happens within the DNA. So the DNA is, of course, your blueprint for you. It's the key to make you, you. Now, when you have cellular dividing, it copies the DNA. Now, sometimes in the copying process, it does it improperly. That causes a mutation. Might be a good one, it might be a bad one. There are also environmental factors, chemicals, radiation, etc., which will damage the DNA. So, in other words, to answer a question that came up right in the beginning, you might be exposed to radiation, and if you survive, you might be fine. It's your kids that might bear the damage because your passing on of the DNA is weird. There is a certain amount of natural repair that the body can do to DNA. So most mutations are fixed before they are a problem, at least the bad ones. Now, that gives us a number of possible ways to fix people. Now, what are mutations? What do they mean? So, evolution is mutation. As we got up onto our hind legs and learnt to talk, that was all mutation, but good mutation, we assume. You also get genetic diversity, which is another good thing, because if we were all identical, the problem is it would destroy our ability to grow as people and may actually cause degeneration in the human race. So genetic diversity is a good thing, and it's the reason why you're not allowed to marry your sister or brother. Most mutations are harmless, and they can cause you to be resistant to diseases, to problems, to all of that. So mutation in and of itself is a good thing. We want it. The problem is when it goes bad. So cancer is not a disease. Did you know that? Cancer is mutation gone wrong. And that's why it's so difficult to try to treat it. because we're not dealing with an external disease, but something in your own body that's gone funky.
Yeah.
And there's the problem. Cheers for coffee. So, what do you think
It might
so
be
far?
mug.
Yeah. Clink.
Clink.
What's on your
it's
mug?
pretty- Oh, I've got horses.
Horses. Horses are good. So, here's the real question. Do you think we will ever figure out how genes work and be able to successfully modify them in specific ways without negative side effects? And if so, what are the wider uses for it? What do you think?
You're asking me?
Both of you, and anybody in the chats that feels the urge to actually send a comment. Come along,
I think
people.
it's a good thing, and I think, yes, people will get there. With AI technologies, we will start being able to do a lot more.
Well, you raise a very interesting point, because the big advantage to AI technology is exactitude with massive data quantities, which really humans struggle with, to be fair. And if you're going to modify DNA, which is really complicated, you do need that kind of ability.
Yeah.
So,
One power to help you then make changes to it.
yes.
Because having a building full of people trying to work it out and understanding genetics and stuff like that would be a bit hard. And people
I think it
aren't
would be
connected.
impossible.
Like the computers are connected.
And I mean, if you think about it, every single little bit of your body, every organ, every tiny bit is all encoded into your DNA in like a drop of blood. So that's a massive, massive amount of information. I mean, really and truly, it's beyond belief. So you would have to be encoding so much information just for the absolute basics of a person. The fact that you've not only got all the bits, but you can grow, age, develop, all of that.
The biggest problem we have is ethics.
Yes, I would agree. I would agree with that as a comment. The ethics of it is the biggest problem. I don't know. Would you consider it to be a
People would say,
necessary?
okay, we don't do experiments on real people. We clone them and do experiments on the clones, and it's still going to be wrong.
That's a very interesting thought, actually. I hadn't thought of that. Damn.
People will
Yeah.
still say it's wrong. You can't
Well,
do that.
how real is a clone? I
Well,
mean, that's the big
Depends on how
question.
real you want to clone him. He could be an absolute identical, or he could come out as a retard, depending on how good the clone is.
What if I cloned your body, but without the brain? So it's like having an entire you, but just no brain. Would that count as being ethical? Because it's not truly alive.
I think people would even start complaining about it and saying, no, it's not right for you to clone someone. forget about the whole project right now.
Well, we know
If
that
you're
they're
looking for,
already. Sorry, say, Mickey.
no. I was just gonna say, if you're looking for an interesting movie about cloning, there's a movie called Infinity Pool. That was really interesting.
Okay. And there was the
Mm.
whole. I mean, you remember when they did Dolly, the sheep?
But yeah, the sheep.
Yeah. I mean, the arguments that came out of that were unbelievable. They really went south. So it's pretty clear that,
Give me an example of an argument.
well, just speaking generally, there were those that said, what a brilliant idea, we should do it, you've cloned a sheep, it's great. And there were people that were like so angry, saying it's blasphemous, what you've done is satanic. And I mean, it got very out of hand. The arguments were heated. So it does show that human beings absolutely do have what we can call strong views on the topic. There is no doubt about it.
And we can't do a lot of science because of ethical reasons.
That is true. Now, along with that, one thing I was reading up on, and even this alone is dubious, they were talking about the ethics of cloned meat. So instead of having a cow, slaughtering it, butchering it, and you get the meat, they wanted to see if they could grow the meat in a lab. It's just a steak. It was never alive. It never had intelligence. It's literally just a grown steak. And even that got people really upset in a lot of
People
ways.
complain about everything. You can do the best thing. You can be such a good person, and you're doing it to help them, but they don't want to understand. They just want to give you shit.
That is true as well. Hey Shady, welcome. Hope you're in fine and fabulous form. But yeah, there will always be people who will fight against that kind of thing. It's true. I suppose in many ways, it's a question of whether the general majority, regardless of opinion and affiliation in other things, all says it's wrong, if that makes sense. If it's one little group, then, you know.
Yeah, but that group is going to become a problem one day. It's going to grow and grow. They're going to try and convince more people to take their point of view, and then the whole project's going to stop as well.
Well, that unfortunately is democracy. And we're seeing the effects of it, good or bad, with the whole concept of being woke.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not putting an opinion, just for the record. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I'm not saying it's a good thing. But it is a thing. A lot of people are now woke, whatever that might imply, and they are standing against a lot of things. And it's having a huge effect. Whether that, I'm not saying it's good, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just saying it's a hell of an effect. It really is. There is no doubt at all. So whether you like it or hate it, you cannot deny it is having a massive effect on the politics and everything of the world. Now, that's democracy in action. If everybody wants to go that way, we will go that way, whether you like it or not.
Democracy is a good thing, just there's one vital issue with democracy. People are retarded.
Well, I would have put it a little more tactly and say that it assumes an educated mass population, which in the past we have had. How educated the mass population is these days may be questionable. This is true. And given how much we've seen the effects of what they call media brainwashing, it's dubious. So yeah, you have a point. And you are completely correct. Look, therapeutic applications, monogenic disorders, which are bad, very bad, Huntington's disease, sickle cell anemia, cystic fibrosis, and all of those, gene editing could fix them. Great. It may very well be able to fix cancers and even infections. Also, great. It might be able to stop Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, complex neurological and physical diseases like heart disease, diabetes. I'd love a cure. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not nice being diabetic. Yeah, I can live with it, but I'd rather not. So yes, it would be great to be able to cure these things. Hereditary conditions, so that you don't give your kids things like that. Yeah, great. However, then we've got potential enhancements. Haven't you wished that you had a straighter nose, fuller lips, Mickey? Haven't you wanted to say, wouldn't I be more beautiful if? What if they said, well, with this injection, you could be? What if they said to you, bigger muscles, faster thinking, better intelligence, you'd never have to wear glasses again, you could be 2 inches taller. We can make it happen. Well, what happened if you could live longer and didn't ever get sick? How ethical is human modification? Because you just know, okay, I will put money on it. If they're ever able to do it, okay, I will put money on it here and now that somebody will say, I want cat's eyes. I want wolf ears.
Cats.
Do you know it will happen?
Grits.
I'm just throwing it out there. And then be all upset when it's not
About the
reversible.
experiments of the neurochip? Those people did give consent.
Okay, number one, this is purely my opinion. I may be wrong. You may disagree with me. I'm not saying it out of cruelty or hate for anybody. However, okay, one of the big things at the moment is gender reassignment surgeries. I believe it should be banned and not only illegal, come with a criminal charge if it is done to anybody prior to the age of 18 at least, preferably 20 or 25, because I do not believe, looking at my own life, that as a child I had the slightest idea of what I was or what I wanted. I mean, I spent till about the age of 8 fully trying to be Spider-Man. I'm just throwing it out there. I reckon he was the coolest thing ever, and that was my goal. I don't believe any child ever should undergo non-elective...
No.
No, well, it's the other way around, elective surgery. That's my opinion, finish and clear. the fact that you can change a person does not mean you should, because absolutely it will. It's just, to me, it's wrong in every way. If, however, as a fully functional adult, with your full consent and you pay for it, thank you very much, if you want to go ahead and get it, that's on you. And good luck. Because it's irreversible. I'm telling you right now. So that's my opinion on anything like that. No
Cousin's gone and
child.
had it done.
And how old are they?
She's 42.
Fine.
Well, she is now a he.
That's fine. She's old enough to make the decision. It should never be a supported surgery, by which I mean no taxpayers' money, ever.
I just wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
Is it a man or a woman, or is it I just want to know, because lots of people get it incorrect and they follow the mental illness. If it's a man that wants to be a woman, he's not a woman. He's a man who thinks he's a woman.
Okay, here is my thinking. What you call yourself at home is your affair. Okay? If you want to use a public bathroom, you go to the one where your body matches. If you do not,
Yeah.
and you as a person with a male body go into the bathroom with my daughter, I will kill you. And I'm not ashamed to say it. If you have had full elective surgery and are physically no longer male, that's fine. Because you are no longer. But if you're just saying, no, but I identify as, and you go in the wrong bathroom, I will identify as Freddy Krueger. And then it will be my job. Maybe I'm wrong. But
Well, you're right.
right off bat,
Right.
not going to happen. Either stand by what you say, in which case I applaud your courage, go for it.
But if I see a man in a dress, I'm not going to call him a woman. I'm going to call him what he is, a man who thinks he's a woman.
No, well, if you've had fully got the surgery, at least in as much as it matches to the world, you're a woman, good enough, fine.
Yeah. If I don't know it and it's really convincing, yeah, then I will say she.
But that's, you know what, I applaud people to be happy, but not at the risk or danger to others. And that's my thing. It's like people say, should we allow someone to get a tattoo? You want a tattoo? Get a tattoo. If you believe that it's wrong to get a tattoo, don't get a tattoo. Me, I got a tattoo. I believe it's fine. I like it. You don't like it? Don't do it. It's fine. But my having a tattoo doesn't affect your life. So it's fine. But whether or not you've got what between your legs, I don't care what you're calling yourself, know that you're going to the correct bathroom. Because that affects my children. Finish.
I've called transgenders she's before because they're like really convincing because
Okay.
they've got the whole package, they've got tits, nice body, long
Great.
hair.
Great.
But then you get those transgender guys which just looks like clowns.
Well, I
They
don't.
dress funny, they
I
paint
don't
their
judge.
faces.
I'm fine with it. I don't judge. But know for certain that if you're going into the little girl's bathroom, you better have had full reassignment surgery and be finished with it. There's no just, but I identify as sorry,
But
because,
you should still watch out for them because they're obviously mentally ill.
well, that's an opinion, and you can argue back and forth whichever way suits you. I have my own opinion. But I'm literally, and I actually know somebody that had a problem with it who owns a restaurant. And he put rather graphic pictures on the doors. And he said, I don't care what you call yourself. If you've got one of those, you go in there. If you've got one of those, you go in there. Finish. Argument over.
Yeah.
Now, what about the ethical considerations of messing with genetics? So, the first one, the biggest one, is the safety and unintended consequences, because we literally don't know. Okay, I've cured your sickle cell anemia, but what about the fact that, as I said, I've caused you to have 3 eyes? We don't know what the body does, and it's so delicate and so complex. I do agree that Spooky's right in his saying that only with AI will we ever get to the point we can decode the complexity of it. Now,
Yeah.
the second thing is social inequality. What if it means that we have a genetic divide between the rich and the poor, because the rich are beautiful, strong, super type people because they can afford it, and everybody else is just not good enough and has to put up with freckles? It is a serious thing. We already use every opportunity as human beings to have a divide between the haves and have-nots. We know that. So, absolutely. Then informed consent, and this is another real problem. If you, okay, let's say Spooky decides he's tired of being a man, he wants to be a woman. He is a full adult. He is absolutely allowed to go and do it. But he can give consent for the surgery. This is my argument against allowing children to get elective surgeries like gender reassignment, because it's done with their parents' consent. And like, excuse me, who the hell are you to say the kid can have it? Kids don't know what they want. They don't. I'm sorry. And I would personally say that the parents should be criminally charged if it happens. Now, if we're talking getting embryonic genetic modifications, an embryo cannot give consent. But, counter argument, would you rather be born with all of your consent intact and an extra leg or a malfunctioning heart, or would you say, well, we took a decision on your behalf and fixed that so that you can lead a normal life? And there's the difference between elective and non-elective surgeries, right there. Because if you could be born with a fully functional heart, you'd probably be pretty glad.
Yeah.
It's not the same. Now, the other thing is on defining normal. And here's where it gets dodgy in a couple of ways. The focus on perfecting humans is a problem because what we decide is perfect changes all the time. And if you're not as properly enhanced as I am, you are now ugly. The second side of it is the natural development of your genetics is important. What if messing with your genetics stops the change and we stop evolving? And now we've become essentially a meat robot. Now, I can see Spooky's got this look on his face like, meat robots. You know that the next live is going to have questions. But it's what it is, isn't it? If you cannot grow or develop properly as a species on your own, you've caused yourself to atrophy as a species. But seeing as we spoke about the fact that somebody is going to want wolf ears, can we have human-animal hybrids? Well, I'm going to give you the official answer, and then I'm going to tell you why it's wrong in a certain way. The answer is no, you can't, because the genetics between the species don't transfer. Okay? However, we already know that they have made mice that can grow a human ear, which is compatible to a human. So to a certain degree, we are already starting to make cross-species compatibility, which means that while we might not be able to do it yet, the possibility in the future for creating chimeras, which is what a human-animal hybrid is very real. And you know for absolute certainty somebody in the military will weaponize it somewhere in the world. I mean, right off bat, it's gonna happen. So natural hybrids are impossible because of genetic incompatibility and reproductive isolation. So different species have evolved distinct reproductive systems. So I couldn't cross a human with a bird naturally. We just don't match. Okay? But chimeras are created already in laboratories. So human stem cells are injected into early embryos in order to get them to grow in certain ways and things. So we know that's done already. There's such a thing as a cellular mixture, where an organism that is a mix of both human and animal cells, known as a chimera, is produced. Now, why would they do it? The primary goal is to, I'm a skeptic. The primary goal is because scientists can. No, the primary goal is to create organisms that could be used to study diseases or grow human organs for transplantation. The ethical concerns is that bringing these chimeras to full term is a subject of debate due to ethical reasons, as the potential for human cells to affect the animal's brain. Japan is currently the first country to approve experiments that would allow human-animal hybrids to be brought to full term. In other words, creating something that's half donkey, half human, say. Now, a deeper understanding of human-animal hybrid research is needed. There is a long history to these experiments, and the ethical debates have been pretty harsh. We know that there were attempts to create a human chimpanzee. We know that at the moment, the creation of human-animal hybrids is illegal according to bioethics and human dignity in the current international laws. Okay, so we know that is true. However, it implies, therefore, seeing as we've got laws governing it, number one, it's been tried before extensively and in more than one place. Two, there's the potential for actually succeeding at it, which means that maybe I could create a centaur or a mermaid, and maybe if we actually end up with serious on-land issues, I could create mermaids out of humans who can then colonize the oceans instead. It's a possibility. We've already, for the sake of argument, created zombies. I mean, if you ever wanted a full fantasy world, I mean, what are those, that drug that they've got in certain parts of Florida where whole streets just have people zombified on it? What is it called
I
again?
don't know what's called.
Fentanyl.
I don't remember now.
Fentanyl.
Yeah, fentanyl, yeah.
Yes.
The zombie dog.
It's a zombie drug. We've got zombies. So who's to say we won't get all kinds of other fantasy creatures in the future made by humans of humans? It's a worrying thought, I'm just saying. Now, we need to talk about reasons why you're not allowed, according to modern things. But before we do, as was pointed out very correctly by Spooky, what about DARPA? And what do they do? Well, DARPA conducts a wide range of experiments in many fields, including advanced robotics, AI, biotechnology, and cybersecurity. Recent and ongoing projects are developing robot swarms for complex tasks, by which you may read robot swarms to attack your country, if we need to, creating AI that can explain its thinking, and using genetic modification to turn plants into surveillance tools or military. DARPA also funds experiments into areas like brain-computer interfaces, hypersonic weapons, and advanced medical treatments for soldiers. I'm not saying that they're very, very interested in military uses, but they're very, very interested in military uses. Robot swarms, using gamer brain and eye movement data to train autonomous ground and aerial robots to work together effectively. Yes, every time you play games online, they are watching you. For good reason. It's okay. They've got your best interests at heart. Don't worry. Creating artificial intelligence that can explain its decision-making process, and developing AI-powered fighter jets. Military. Autonomous vehicles, so I can send a tank to shoot you without going myself. Various autonomous platforms using vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, unmanned personal ground vehicles, or UGVs, that can run on plant fuel that they basically already made like 30 years back. I knew the guy that developed it, and it was bought by Shell, who did a lot of military funding, just throwing it out there. Robotic systems for battlefield tasks, like the Squad X project, that integrates drones, robots, and sensors in offensive systems like the Aurora X-65 crane. That's one for you, Spooky. Look it up and tell us about it in the next live. Aurora X-65 crane. Spy bugs, implanting transmitters into living insects to use them for surveillance. researching brain implants for treating PTSD, as well as other projects to upload skills to the human brain. Developing in vivo diagnostics and therapeutics that use nanoparticles to provide targeted drug delivery or detect disease inside the body. What that means in common English is I take really tiny robots that can treat disease and I inject you with them. They live inside you.
You're typically I don't do with skills.
Well,
You can start working and do work and carry on as if you knew all of it already.
yes, I just download the patch for being a carpenter and off you go. Genetic modification of plants, which you know will then mean animals, which will then mean people. Cybersecurity and hardware. So bug bounty programs to validate the security of hardware architectures and identify areas for improvement against threats like tampering and possibly taking over your system. Cybersecurity research, advanced machine learning tools and other technologies to keep technical edge in cybersecurity. Small-scale technology, small power-efficient vacuum pumps to use in sensors and micro drones. Space and hypersonic technology for weapons and a reusable hypersonic space plane, underwater vehicles, autonomous gliders like the Mano Ray for long-term surveillance and exploration, especially for when people can't go there. And then new wireless power transfer technologies to extend the operational time of drones to somehow beam power down to them. Now, DARPA is a military group. They are all interested in doing essentially DARPA military products so that hopefully we can take over anybody that's bad, i.e. who doesn't agree with us. Now, if you were to go on even some cursory searches, they've got a lot of projects that they're doing. I mean, serious. The Global Autonomous Language Exploitation Program, which is literally designed so I can talk to you in any language, you can understand me entirely with no need for translation. And when you talk back in your language, I understand you perfectly. That's one of theirs. As well as a whole lot of other things. Fractionated spacecraft. I don't even know what that is. Satellite architecture where the functional capabilities of a conventional monolithic spacecraft are distributed across multiple modules which interact through wireless links, which basically allows it to be separating out into clusters to do different jobs, but also join back together as a spaceship. It does sound kind of cool, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, there are stealth fighters, missiles, laser guns, and more. So, as you can imagine, even to the point, you know, did any of you ever see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And I think the last Captain America movie, where they've got those, essentially it's like an aircraft carrier, but they fly.
No.
Yes, they are working on developing something like that. Something that is essentially a permanently airborne aircraft carrier. Huge ship that stays up in the air. and they can move it around when they need to.
How much fuel is that going to use?
Well, the trick is to make it run off a form of fuel that it never needs to be refueled. Or at least only needs refueling like once every 100 years.
Or it needs maintenance,
Well,
obviously.
there would be that, but as you can imagine, that's the idea, what they're working on. We know that there is an electronic neuromorphic machine that they're trying to build to make a cognitive computer that works the same as a human brain.
So
In-
slow.
No, they would want it better, but as clever or more clever. So it basically an autonomous robot that is essentially a cyborg. They can think for themselves, they have personality, everything.
Those things are already. And a computer is so much smarter than a person.
No, you see, a computer isn't smarter. It's faster and can handle more detail, more info. But it's not really smarter. It's not an autonomous thinking thing with personality
I'm trying
yet.
to say AGI.
We're getting to that. Eventually, that's where it's going to go. It's not fully done yet. It comes close in certain ways, and then
Humans are dangerous, and you do not want a advanced, intelligent being to think like humans.
well, no, that is also true. That is one of the problems. But nevertheless, that's what they're trying to do. Good idea, bad idea. So there is that. Drone technology is being looked into. Advanced drones, tiny drones. There's one where they're trying to create a robot that powers itself by feeding off plants like animals. It sounds good. I have questions. And I would then say, if the robots are eating our food, they might want it and no longer want us around because we're now eating their food. You know what I'm saying? They say that though their project was stopped in development, engineers estimated that this creature would be able to travel 100 miles for every 150 pounds of biomass consumed. Again, I'm a little dubious as how good an idea this is. Throwing it out there. What about houses that can repair themselves? So they're made out of a kind of lightweight scaffold instead of the usual materials, and they fill with durable material all on their own. And if the wall, designated wall, is damaged, it will grow it back. It's part of their engineering living material program to create literally materials that can repair themselves. 3D printed organs and tissues are part of it. And maybe some way that, let's say you're in an accident and your leg gets knocked off, your body would then, through this integrated technology, reprint its own leg.
Yeah, that was good.
And again, before you say it, Spooky, yes, a virus would be problematic. There is no doubt. So yeah, there's that going for it. Instead of actually then having to ship things to places, all I do is send you the program and you just grab whatever biomass you need and print it out. So it wouldn't matter. Like I could say, okay, well Mickey needs a new arm and Spooky needs a new leg. We've got the biomass. As long as I have the program, whichever one I choose to replace, I'm using the same stuff, just a different program, and then I can print off a new one. So you wouldn't be waiting in line to get transplants or, anything like that. I print the one I need. Now, cyborg insects are a big deal with DARPA because insects are small, fast, very agile, and by and large we ignore them. If I could have spy bugs, and control them, it would be awesome. That passing fly is actually a secret agent checking out what you're up to, and you would never know. Is it a good idea?
They are sort of like your enemy, essentially.
Yeah, I'm dubious. Robotic legged mules to carry equipment for military first, but for anyone. So basically, a semi-intelligent walking vehicle that will carry all your shit to you wherever you're going.
That's
Sounds
cool.
pretty good.
I saw a mechanical horse.
Yeah, there we
Well,
go.
it was that AI thing, but they had made like a horse, like the robot horse. You can just ride around and it walks like a normal horse. So it's pretty cool to see.
Okay,
That'd
sounds
be
good, sounds
awesome.
good. What about nuclear-propelled spaceships? Project Orion, a new means of spaceship propulsion, and nuclear is one of the serious ways where they're trying to do it. Here's another one, just as cool. One of the problems getting through dense jungle or rough ground is you need legs. What about a mechanical elephant? Able to transport heavy loads and get over rough ground, which wheels and tracks can't.
That'd be cool.
Maybe. I'm also slightly worried about it. That said, we now need to have a quick look at, if I can find the okay, so the 4 scientific ethical principles on human experimentation. Number 1, autonomy. Research must respect an individual's right to autonomy. Beneficence. All the research must promote the good. Non-maleficence. It must not cause harm. And justice. It must all be fair. Do you think they are going to manage to do that?
No.
I'm a little bit dubious. Maybe I'm a cynic. Maybe I really have seen too much of the dark side of people. I mean, look, 20 years as a criminal investigative reporter, I did see some fairly awful stuff. So I know how bad people can be, but here's my argument. It only really takes one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, will humans be genetically modified in the future? Maybe in a few decades. However, I would say sooner. It was 100 years ago that people were basically saying, you will never fly. It's impossible. In the last 100 years, we've advanced more and faster as a human race than ever before in history. Not necessarily in a good way. So, yeah, I reckon it might very well be the case. What do you think? So, having said all of that, what are your comments about mutation? Mickey?
Yeah, it probably will happen very soon. I mean,
And are you for or against?
if it's gonna help with illnesses, then yes, for to help cure certain illnesses.
Fair point, fair point. Spooky.
Well, mutating people immediately, like fast-track mutation, because we are mutating continuously or slightly. It's called micromutation.
Yes.
That's how we got our organs and stuff. Because
True.
in a couple of millions of years, we might get new organs, new types of organs because of micromutation. It's not just going to happen suddenly, because natural selection needs to take place. And if you look too odd or too weird, people aren't going to really make babies with you.
True, true. Fair point. You guys in the comments, what do you say? For or against genetic mutation? Do we need it? Is it important? Is it too dangerous? What do you think? Drop a comment. But yeah, that said,
Mutating a person to have wolf ears is a bit crazy, weird.
it is crazy and weird, but people are crazy and weird. And you know somebody will try it, or want it at least. So there's
And if
that.
they don't want it anymore,
Well, if you've gone and had transgender surgery, what if you don't want to be the other gender anymore? Then what? Well, too bad, really. Not a lot you can do. So,
chopped your dick off and threw it away.
I don't know. It's a very interesting question and a difficult one to answer. That said, before we end,
I would like to mutate myself, but only to enhance my body, be able to see better, or certain things like that.
Look, I would love to have perfect vision. I would love to not be diabetic. I'd love to be 20 years younger. Not gonna
Enhancing
lie.
my body using mutated means, then I'm all for it.
But yeah, it does raise concerns as well. Nevertheless, that said,
It is there, and I'm not a test subject. That's fine.
but somebody has to be a test subject, don't they?
Yeah.
So, where do we go from here? What would you like to look at next in the lives? Weird, wonderful, strange. See if you can think of something. Come up with ideas. Drop me a comment. I'm going to see what I can come up with that is suitably strange, weird, wonderful, and who knows, maybe even scary. And until the next one, I will see you guys. This is me, Strange Bones. Have a very, very good evening.
Have a good night. Cheers.
Cheers. Sleep sweet, my darling. Cheers, Spooky. Have a good one. Thank you to everyone else for being on. I hope you enjoyed.